Module 5 Introduction. So Module 5, Unmanned Aircraft System Components, Part 3, Sensors and Payloads. All right. So start out really real simple here. What the heck is a sensor? What is a payload? All right. So the term sensor and payload is not necessarily interchangeable. A sensor is a payload, but really we talk about payloads. A payload is more of a generic term that encompasses a sensor. But so let's just look. So a payload provides a purpose, right? So it provides purpose to the UAS project flight. So basically, if you think about any time we're going to fly a UAS, we're really doing two different things. All right. Number one, we're either flying for the joy of flying, either for training or just to fly. Or number two, we're going to fly for to complete a mission. All right, so we have a UAS project, a UAS mission flight, and we're going to fly the aircraft to conduct that mission. So that's what I would call a project flight. Anytime we are conducting a project flight, we're going to be using some payload or some payload to complete that mission. So the payload is really what provides purpose to that UAS project flight. All right, and so what the UAS does, so during a UAS project flight, the UAV, what we're doing is we're leveraging the UAV's ability to position that payload where it needs to be. And my language here is intentionally vague, and you'll see why in a second. All right. So we want to get that payload, whatever it is, to where that payload needs to be to complete the mission. All right. So a payload can be anything on board the aircraft for the purpose of collecting or deriving something, or a payload can be additional equipment to increase the utility of the aircraft in operations. This is just the introduction. We'll get into the details of what exactly I'm talking about here in a minute. All right, so UAS payloads may provide utility, all right, such as a camera, a water sample, so utility to the mission, or it may enhance aircraft capabilities such as like a hydrogen fuel cell, so that we can increase the endurance of our aircraft, or a parachute should our aircraft engines fail, to avoid catastrophic loss of the aircraft should engines fail midair. All right, so the big thing to remember with UAS payloads is UAS can be used to both collect data or materials, so we can send a UAS out to get something, so imagery, water, gas, bring it back so we can analyze it, or we can use the UAS to send something, deliver something, such as a life vest, medical equipment. The sky's the limit. Really you're limited by your imagination, and that's actually one of we'll look at course objectives here in a second, but that's actually one of the module objectives, is for you to expand your imagination. All right, so here's just a couple examples. So the big thing when we're talking about UAS collection, like what is everyone, like what's the first, like just someone pipe in, what's the first thing you think about when you think about UAS data collection? UAS collection in general, what are you collecting? Anyone?
Required.
Surveying information?
I'm sorry, you guys stepped on each other a little bit.
This is Dan here. I mean, it's a pretty vague answer, but it's whatever the mission requires.
100%. I like the way you're thinking. And I guess here I'm just thinking a little bit more specifically, like usually when we're thinking about drones and why do people freak out about drones, right? It's because they collect imagery, right? They collect video, they collect photos, they are collecting something, and we'll talk today about the idea of remote sensing, right, which is the science of collecting data from afar. So it's those cameras that can collect videos and still photos. That's what freaks people out about drones, about a drone flying over your house, right? No one wants you pointing your DJI Mavic camera in their shower window, though you're really rolling the dice there anyway. So a more, I guess, a lesser known form of collection is this idea behind materials collection. So whether we're the two examples I've personally done are I've collected water. I've flown a drone to collect water samples, and I've flown a drone to collect air samples. All right, but there are a lot of different types of gas sensing drones where you fly a drone to a location so it can collect information about what it's flying through. And I imagine there are a lot of other examples out there that I haven't come across. All right, so those are the basic idea, and what we'll do is we'll look at specific examples of each of these. The other side of the coin, the UAS payload and sensor coin, is delivery. All right, and what we're talking about here really is so commercial delivery. I'm sure you guys have heard, or hopefully you've heard about Amazon's drone delivery. Was it Domino's is talking about like a pizza delivery? DHL is a parcel delivery company like USPS or FedEx or UPS. They're talking about a drone delivery, and there's actually a video. I ask you for your homework this week to watch the DHL commercial parcel delivery video. So commercial delivery, there's agricultural delivery. So they have these big, DJI makes their biggest drone is this agricultural sprayer. So you actually fly the drone over your crops and it sprays your crops. And then of course, on the defense side, we've probably all seen, maybe unless your moral values are a much higher level than mine. We've all seen videos of Department of Defense large UAS dropping munitions on targets, either test targets or live targets. But what we'll see here is that drones themselves can be the munitions, can be the weapons. All right, and as a major example, I wanted to point out, this is something I work directly with, is this payload mounted, and it's a sweet picture my colleague Steve Ramekers took along a highway in, I think this is in Arizona. This might have been the bushfire not too far outside of Phoenix, Arizona, taken just a couple months ago. So this is the M6, the DJI Matrice 600, also called the M600 Pro aircraft, and on it, and I guess, let's see, the point I wanted to make here is that an aircraft can have more than one payload, all right? An aircraft can have a sensor and a payload. An aircraft can have multiple payloads. An aircraft can have multiple sensors, all right? And what we have here is we have the this company called Drone Amplified built this payload called the Ignis 2. And what this payload is, it's a plastic spear dispensing payload, and what it's used for is dropping fire. All right. And first, let me point out that there's the Ignis 2 plastic sphere dispensing payload on the bottom, and it's really hard to see because of the contrast. But there's also a camera here. This is an DJI XT2 duo thermal electro-optical camera that's mounted to the front of this. So one of my points with this image here is that we have both a payload in the strictest sense of a payload and a sensor. So both of these are considered part of the payload, but we have a sensor that's a payload, and then we have another type of payload that sort of makes the combined payload on this aircraft. And I break each of these down. What we can see here is the Ignis 2 is on the left, and then this is the DJI XT2 on the bottom right-hand side here, which has the thermal camera is here sort of closest to us. Got sort of a smaller lens, and then the electro-optical is this camera here on furthest from us, sort of on the camera's left-hand side. That's going to collect information through the same visible wavelengths that our eyes can see. We'll talk a little bit more about that here in the next couple slides. All right, so some key terms and acronyms, and I just throw these. My goal here is to throw some of these up front for you guys so that you can have an idea of what we're going to talk about, but I address each of these key terms within the module itself. So what are our objectives for this module? Well, my first objective is to ignite your imaginations for what is possible with UAS sensors and payloads, all right? And all I'm trying to do here is I'm not trying to cover everything. That would be impossible. It's, you know, this field, I've said it many times before, is at the cutting edge of science, not only in the science of what can we do with UAS, but also in many other aspects of science which are asking how can we improve how we do our science with UAS, with the current capabilities of UAS. So there are new things being created all the time, but there are also new ways of using existing technology all the time as well. All right, so our second objective is going to be to define these key terms that are going to be important to understand how UAS payloads and sensors function, and then we're going to describe some of the most common use cases for UAS payloads.